Hello, welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. I welcome all of you to this conversation, and it is so interesting that we talk about a subject rather so important to all of us. Everyone wants peace. Everyone wants to live in a community that is calm, that is welcoming, that is supportive of everything they are doing. And today we look at the International Peace Day, and we have a crafted topic around that. We say cultivating a culture of peace, and we call it a bridge to sustainable development. That pulls from this year's theme for the celebration of the International Day of Peace, which talks about cultivating a culture of peace. And they tell us this is drawn from the fundamental belief of the UNESCO, and the belief talks about wars beginning from the minds of men, and therefore they say that for the world to have peace, they have to go back to those specific minds and teach them how to be peaceful, teach them how to think peaceful, teach them how to grow peacefully such that we can avoid war in the world. And of course, we know that in the world today, we have very many wars going on. When you look at the African continent, just here in East Africa, you have a war in Southern Sudan, you have a war in the Northern Sudan, or what you can call Khartoum, Sudan. You have war in Mozambique, you have war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You can talk about Ethiopia, you can talk about Eritrea. Wars just in this region, and when you continue, the entire continent, whether it's Mali or Niger or Nigeria or Guinea, you have war everywhere. And internationally, when you cross the borders of Africa, you have war in Ukraine, you have war in Gaza, you have war. So the world is not at peace. And indeed, such a day comes at a time when we have to rethink and talk about these things and see how we get out of these particular challenging situations, and hopefully the world can live better for the future, because in the end, it is not about us, it is about our children and grandchildren and the people that shall live 1,000 years from our existence. My name is Phillip Muliisa once again, and what we normally do is I have you talk to us briefly about yourself and where you are. For example, where I am, it's quite sunny, and my view has a couple of hills. You can see we have a bright day. I can see a series of hills in the name of, to my right, I see Old Kampala Hill, and I can see Namirembe Hill down here, and a series of other installations in the city, because I'm in Kampala right now. And very bright a day it is, and I hope it keeps this way until the end of the day, because this in the end supports the daily activities uninterrupted. That's my view, and that's where I am. And I will invite you to speak to us briefly about yourself and where you are. Then we can get into the depth of the conversation. I will start with ladies first. So let me start with you, Lynder. Lynder, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I am Lynder Evans Aliija. I am a lawyer by profession, and I work with sceptre advocates currently. I am very enthusiastic about the youth and young people. I am also passionate about peace, about development, about mental health awareness, and general about life. Because at the end of the day, it's us that are going to make a tomorrow that we want. So it's really, really up to us, the young people, to step up and, aim up our game. We have to give it our A game. So I'm delighted to be here today. And I hope and believe that at the end of this conversation, each and every one of us will have picked a thing or two to do better in our lives generally and as a country as well. So you asked me about my view. I am currently as well in Kampala, though I'm indoors. So unlike you who has views of hills and trees and what, well, my views of another building. Yeah, so I'm glad and delighted to be here.
Thank you so much, Lynder, for joining us. And indeed, we appreciate the work you do at sceptre advocates. And of course, we know how important that profession is for the country, but also for the growth and development of peace in our societies. So thank you so much for joining us, and indeed, we can't wait to hear from what you have to share with us. Salim, you're most welcome.
Thank you. My name is Kawanguzi Salim. I work with the Uganda Key Populations Consortium, and I have this passion for behavior change, but also I am into human rights, given the fact that it's something that I believe all of us should interest ourselves in. But I am a project lead on an HIV CDC-funded project that oversees access to health services, among other issues, by the marginalized communities in Uganda. Currently, I'm outside Kampala. I'm in Gulu, actually. But
Wow.
the view here, yes, the sun is out. I feel so warm. I think this is good for me. And yes, there is a lot of green where I have parked. So yeah, I'm just in that good mood. Thank you very
That's so
much. But
interesting
also,
because many times we talk about Gulu and northern Uganda, people think it is actually a dry place and there is no green and there is no water. When you mention there is a lot of green around you, that gives us a very good image of Gulu, and indeed, thank you for that mention.
okay.
Colleagues, thank you so much for joining us. And as we wait for the other colleagues to join us later in the conversation, I know they'll join us. I want us to start. Peace. Now, since 1981, the United Nations has been annually celebrating the International Day of Peace. And we know there have been modifications that have been put to this. For example, when you come closer to 2001, they declared that even in areas where you have maybe war, where you have disaster, such a day should be one where we only focus on peace. If there is fighting, you go for a ceasefire for that entire day, such that the whole world can have a moment where there is no violence anywhere. And it's one of the things that can be relieving. You are at war, and for some 24 hours, you don't hear any guns, you don't hear bombs, you don't hear things of the sort. And I hope we had similar situations today. But I want to ask you, and I will start with you, Lynder. When you hear the term peace, what comes to your mind? What do you understand by peace? And indeed, do you think we have peace basically in your area where you spend a lot of time? Is that area peaceful?
So we are still muted. Thank you so much for the question. So oftentimes you find that we refer to certain terms, but we don't even understand what they really are. Now, for example, peace is a word that we use every day. We have gone as far as even naming our children peace. But I would say most of us don't understand what exactly is entailed in just the word peace. We just take peace on the bare basis, on the face of it, that this is peace and peace and peace, and that's it. But peace is something that's far wider, far greater than just the 5-lettered word. Let's say, in my own definition of peace and my own understanding of peace, peace is tranquility, peace is freedom, peace is liberty from distractions and disturbances. So us saying the terminology peace is far greater than us just saying the word peace. It calls for tranquility, it calls for freedom, it calls for liberty to do a lot more than we can do. It calls for no limitations in whatsoever we are doing. So you have asked me that in relation to the places I am most times, which is Kampala, is there peace? Well, I will say yes, and partially no. Why? You find that when it comes to transactions, when it comes to movements, when it comes to ownership, yes, we have the liberty to do most of these things. But at the end of the day, we are doing all these things in partial fear. For example, if I walk into a shop in Kampala today, let me say I go to Mutara Sakafero and I buy a phone. Well, there is peace that's going to enable me have my money and go to Mutasa to buy that phone. That's peace of mind. That's liberty to do so. But immediately I get that phone out of the shop, then my peace is severed because I am not sure if it will reach home or it won't. So there is still that instability that, yes, I am able to do all these things. Yes, I can run for a political position. Yes, there is peace to go to school and study and all. But at the end of the day, despite me having that peace, I have no guarantee if indeed my first objective, my main objective for getting that will be fulfilled. Because there are certain shortcomings here and there. Probably I may run into politics and then the next thing I hear, they're beating us politicians because we chose to, do a certain thing. Or I decide to buy a car because I want to drive, and then the next thing, some random Indian man is coming to, take on the car because he's demanding it. Maybe this person got it. So there are a lot of shortcomings when it comes with the peace that we have and the liberties that we have. But yes, to a greater percentage, we are actually, I would say, we are one of the most peaceful and happy countries in Africa and in the world, basing on different factors, different associations, and different interactions with people outside Uganda. You find that, yes, Uganda may not be at 100%, but we are above the bare minimum when it comes to peace. So yeah, that's my perspective when it comes to peace and vis-a-vis where we are.
Thank you so much, Lynder, for that overview and understanding of peace, the tranquility, the freedom, and indeed, you say Uganda is about the minimum of being peaceful, and you mentioned it's one of the most peaceful countries in the world. Thank you for that. I want to come to you, Mr. Kawanguzi. What is your own understanding of peace, and indeed, how can you rate our community and by extension the country Uganda on the peace index? I want to pick your own understanding of the terminology peace, or what peace is in its entirety, but also give us your rating on the peace index. How can you rate Uganda? Is it a peaceful country? Is it a country in turmoil? Is it a country that is what is your description of Uganda? Yes.
Thank you, Philip. For me, I think peace, I'll just use a few words to describe my understanding of peace. So for me is absence of violence, that social cohesion, justice and equality, active participation, the community resilience. For me, that's what I would use to describe peace. Now, if I'm to talk about Uganda in the context of peace, I want to relate to my sister who just shared. I think I agree with her, only that my context, I don't want to only look at myself. I want to relate to the kind of work I do and the kind of people I relate with during my, my execution of my duties. I personally deal with marginalized communities. So for me, good enough, my sister there is a lawyer. Recently, the Parliament of Uganda passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act. And I'm privileged that where I sit, I have been able to interact with people who are victims of the Anti-Homosexuality Act. So I don't want to be a hypocrite and come here and say, I would say, we are just a peaceful world. A country, we are happy. Yes, I can, for example, Philip, it would be sad if I am happy, I'm enjoying, but when you are deprived of some of your rights because maybe we disagree on X and Y, and you're totally living in fear. I wouldn't come here and brag about being happy or being peaceful. For me, I believe this country is big enough to accommodate all of us, whether we agree or whether we don't disagree, whether we disagree. So for me, the peace bit of it is, I don't know, I want to say is in piecemeals. Some people are peaceful, they are happy, but there are groups of people who are not. For example, living just the work I do. Back like 3 years ago, I used to work with a project in Karamoja. I used to work with a project in Karamoja, and Philip, Kampala is so peaceful. Kampala is so happy to the extent that the things that happen in Karamoja, if someone narrated them, they would look like, are they in Uganda? Is it reality, or these are just stories like that are exaggerated? For example, there is a time I was crossing from Kabong going to Karenga, and on my way, the military tanker just by speeding with 2 UPDF trucks, and I was like, wait, we can use military tankers within our own areas. Like, how? What are they even, who are they going to? Because as a layman who even doesn't know about the military, so when I see military tank, I think they are going to bomb a place. I was like, what's going on? So for me, I think the peace in Uganda is in bits. Now, I live in Kampala, I work in Kampala, but I have those regular travels. So I can tell you that where I sit and work from, authoritatively, I can tell you that because of the Anti-Homosexuality Act, I have met people who cannot leave their house to go to a health center, who only seek maybe for PrEP or PEP. Why? Maybe because they chose to belong to a certain group. But I mean, Philip, I think these are conversations that we need to be honest about. These are issues that we need to address.
Thank you so much. You raised something so important. You talk about the marginalized groups, and here's my question to that. You see, we have individual interests as a people, but also there is something they call the greater good or the common good of the entirety. And you talked about human rights, and most of the values you talk about are things that are crafted in something they call democracy. When you look at such a situation under the anti-homosexuality law, and you look at how it was passed with a majority in parliament, with a general consensus even in the communities, where do we draw the line between individual interests that certainly might be of a minority, like you mentioned, whom we shall in the end call marginalized, and the general acceptance of society or the bigger acceptance of community?
I think, Philip, we need to understand who makes society, what makes up society, and what makes up a community in the first place. You see, if you met a group of sex workers, a group of truck drivers, that's a community. Society has its norms, but then who has authority over them is also another question. So I don't know about what is individual and what is not individual. For me, I want to look at it in this kind of perspective, Philip. Before, when I was seated in the back seat always, before having the interactions, I want to be honest, I used to think that the marginalized groups are just groups of people who are looking for attention, who are seeking for asylum, so on and so forth. But I can tell you, if you have moved this country, I have gone as far as Arua to meet those people. As far as Arua. And for me, I don't want to look at what society looks at. I want to look at the aspect of life. Okay, Philip, let's say me and you disagree. Must I be attacked and maybe someone almost beating me up because me and you are disagreeing?
So maybe let's put this clear. Are you saying that some of these people, especially since we talk about the anti-homosexuality bill, so if we have homosexuals in our communities, are you trying to say that you've seen cases where some of these people have been attacked?
Well, Philip, like I said, where I sit, this is the kind of work I do. I don't just see, I interact with them. And what hurts me is personally, I am a straight person. I am a straight person, but for us, we don't give them an ear, but they can give us an ear. They are open for discussions, but we are not open. We are not tolerant. We don't even want to have that conversation. So for me, I think that one of the things that this country has not understood is there is a lot behind there. I don't want to go into the sexuality bit because that's not the topic for today. I want us to look at peace. I want to tell you that there, where I sit, we receive over 300 cases of violations on a daily. And
Salim, that's a huge number.
And I speak this with authority. So sometimes I'm like, did we go wrong as a country that we cannot even listen to each other? And I can tell you that for me, the kind of cases I always look at, I'm sometimes asking myself a lot of questions because I understand. I have been on Twitter always following up conversations, and they're quite interesting. Personally, I'm a Muslim. I'm from a Muslim background. And my faith condemns a lot to do with the marginalized people. There is a lot. But then we need to have conversations about what my religion, what my tribe says. We need to have these conversations, Philip, because at the end of the day, Philip, let me tell you, one of the marginalized people is your close friend, is my friend, is my relative. So a question will arise, Philip. Let me just put it like this, that if tomorrow your best friend comes to you and tells you, Philip, you know I'm gay. Philip, what would you do? Would you stop talking to him or her because they have chosen that path?
No, they're human.
So for me, I think if we want to be peaceful, we need to create an environment where Philip is free to express themselves, where me and Philip can disagree, but also get to a point of understanding that, okay, Philip is XYZ, but let's move on. I need to protect
thank you so much.
You need to protect me. So that's me.
Thank you so much, Salim, for that. And it's rather powerful that you talk about it. I want to come back to you, Miss Aliija. And now we talk about peace, and we talk about earlier you talked to us that you will buy your mobile phone, but you're not sure it will reach home. And in the end, every other day you have to look at protecting it. What do you think causes some of these cases of instability, the insecurity you talk about? Because in the end, if you go to buy something or if you live in a community, you expect that every other person is interested in having a peaceful and progressive community. What are the things that act as obstacles or that inspire the people that engage in non-peaceful means to be in our communities? What inspires them?
Thank you for the question. So you have asked me what inspires deterioration in peace and all. Well, firstly, I would start maybe from just the towns as they move to give a broader perspective. So for the cities and what, you find that the biggest cause is, yes, one, development, which is so true. Yes, we're looking up to that development. Yes, we're trying to develop as a country, as a people, as a culture, as a nation and all. But we have not prepared ourselves to do this. Now, oftentimes the causes of now like instabilities within the country, you find that the biggest participants are young people below the age of 35, below the age of 40. You find some of these guys are supposed to be in school, they're children and what. So at the end of the day, it's not that it's by choice oftentimes. No, it's not a choice they have made, but it's what life has forced them to be. For example, you find this child is supposed to be in school. But because it's on the streets, because it has no parents, it has no guidance, it has no one to look up to, and they must survive. So because of the need to get into their survival mode, they end up becoming thieves, becoming robbers, because they're trying to survive just like any human being that would want to survive. So us as a people, I would not say that it's just the government, no, because such responsibility goes back past just the government. The government is made up of us. It's just that now, out of us, we choose certain people to represent the whole of us. So us pinpointing that, you know what, the president, you know what, the government, the ministers, the what, we forget that these people come from us. At the end of the day, His Excellency President Museveni goes back to our family. At the end of the day, me and you are going back to our families. And in those families, we are supposed to perform certain responsibilities that we
But
are
you see,
ignoring.
Lynder, look, if you allow me, the person you talk about, or it can be the president or the MP or the councillor, woke up one morning, came to my doorstep, told me if I allow them to occupy a particular office, they will be able to solve the lack of education you talk about. They will be able to solve the unemployment you talk about. They will be able to solve all these challenges that lead into the instability you talk about. So I didn't invite them to do so. They promised they would, so I have all rights to blame them.
Yes, you have all the right to blame them, yes. But at the end of the day, I believe all of us have heard of the saying, charity starts at home. So it goes back to the type of people that you're dealing with. If at all you have given me a term today to serve you for 5 years and I don't, and you do nothing about getting me out of that office, because trust me, because we're in survival mode and we are so, I would say, blinded by our immediate needs, you find that come next year, these same people that have done nothing for the past 5 years are going to come, give us bars of salt, give us sugar, and because that's our immediate need, we're going to go ahead and give them the vote. We'll be blinded by just that short term. So that's why I'm saying it goes back to now us who are, I would say, more considerate, more attached to these people, to go back and teach them and sensitize them that, look, these leaders that are doing nothing for you actually have the power in you
because
to
they
change.
have made us insects of survival. We need to survive. I mean, if I have to survive on a bowl of soap, then I'll take it to survive.
Exactly. That's why I've said it goes back to us as people. Let me say, if me and you, Muliisa, each day we choose to go out and sensitize and educate and skill these other people, then you have given them the power. You have given them the power to change their lives, to sustain themselves. Why are we having so many children on the streets? Simply because there is a person, me and you, that can weave, that knows how to make paper bags, that has not taken that effort to be one with society, to be one with these people, to teach them that actually, look here, to make a paper bag, you don't need much. Just get paper, give them just little resources for that startup and empower them to do something better with their lives. Trust me, you and I, Lisa, can attest that it's very hard to find you at the street begging for a meal. Why? Because you have something engaging you. Unlike these people that even though I have the skill, I will not feel it within me. I will not have, there is a term that we use most, Ubuntu. I'll not have the Ubuntu to go and teach a street child how to make a paper bag. It does not even take 5 minutes to do so. But because, as some people say that these days it's for God and my stomach, or for God and my family, that's the setting we have put ourselves into. So that's why I am not saying that it's just the government. It goes back to all of us as society, because all of us can contribute to that change. But what are we choosing to do? For God and my family, for God and my stomach, we're not mindful of the changes we can make and the impact we can have in creating more peace, in creating more stability, in creating changes that are going to help. For example, still, as I get now, you had asked me about peace and all. So you find that other reasons why we're having instabilities goes back to our cultures. It goes back to our customs and our ways of life. You find, I will use the people in the north, really. these guys, this culture is all about cattle raiding, and cattle raiding is not a peaceful trade. That you're just going to go and I say, Muliisa, and I want 500 of your cows. No, it has to be a bit violence. It has to be a war here and there. So you find some of the contributing factors to some of these things are just us as people, our customs, our backgrounds that we need to move past. For example, I don't know if you have heard of certain customs, certain tribes fighting. I'll take an example of Tororo. This is a story I had recently. Tororo, you find its occupants are Itesots and Japadolas. But there has been a clash between the two because each side is saying this is supposed to be our land. We are supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. So such struggles, if at all we don't go back on the drawing table and talk to probably our cultural leaders to try and streamline that, you know what, we are at the end of the day, we all drip red blood. We are all African and we are one, so we can stay in harmony. Then you find that because of certain cultural practices, certain beliefs, certain entitlements, you're going to keep having peaceful, unpeaceful ways of living because of just culture and the custom. And that's what we as people are being told, because let me say, if a man Itesot being brought up by a traditional Itesot man for a father and mother, trust me, they're going to tell me never allow a Japadola to be here, to even buy land in Tororo or settle here. And the vice versa is true. Even a Japadola will be doing the same thing. Why? There's
I
no
mean,
way.
a more classical example to that you are giving is the current conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelites. It is basically a battle of territory and how they can't tolerate each other. But thank you so much for that. And I think it creates a very huge insight. I want to bring in Salim. Exactly. She mentions the Ubuntu aspect. You are because I am, and I am because you are. And we know the African traditional society for having been a community that allowed communal address of challenges, communal upbringing of children, communal, concern on the morals and everything done in that society. And when you look at what happens today, and indeed she put it so right that it's for God and either my stomach or my family. Where did we lose it? That today you get into a community and neighbors are fighting, maybe of a piece of land, maybe of a tree, maybe of we know very many communities that have fought, and when you go international, there have been battles where hundreds of people have lost lives just because of a boundary. How did we lose this out?
I think there is a lot out there. And one of the things that I think when you look at our curriculum, our education system, we need to change a lot of things there. Because for me, I think education of fostering culture of peace. An instance where we incorporated peace education into our school curricula, where children are going to school, but they're in they are trained on conflict resolution skills. And when we have this come through, we are training our young generation to have a culture of tolerance. And I think we are not a tolerant generation. And also, look at the kind of governance. She's been talking about it. Look at the kind of things going on in our country. But me, I think if we had inclusive governance and participation, and if had a system where have marginal groups such as who actively participate. Now, this one will contribute to or improve on the decision making and then bring about that aspect of stability. Someone will come and tell me that, yes, we have women representatives at all levels, Someone will tell you that we have youth MPs. Yes, we have them. But Philip, if I asked you, do you even know them? Personally, I even don't know. I've not seen them engage in conversations, especially about the youth. So that alone means, yes, we know what to do, but we are not doing the right thing, even when we know that the right thing is X, Y, Z. So I think we are where we are, as not just as a country. I have followed the events in the Gaza Strip. I have interested myself in the reports by the UN bodies there. But also, look at the upper hand. Look at the upper hand. What is their role in that conflict? Compare it to the war in Ukraine. There is a lot there. There is a lot of blame games. There is a lot of hypocrisy. It's just there. So for me, I think we need, getting back to Uganda, we need a healing process, Philip. We need a healing process. And this healing process is not just about you and me. It should be about us, where we go back. Growing up as a child, I grew up from a district in the eastern called Iganga. So when I was growing up, a child belonged to the community. So if our neighbor was passing by and they saw me doing something that is really wrong, they would wipe me and tell me, or even hold my hand after wiping me, take me to my mom or my grand and say, I found Salim doing X, Y, and Z. My mom would start from there as well. Now, here we are today. It can't happen. You cannot touch my son, because I will go to the police and I will come up with a statement for the law to take its course, because that's where we are. That's the generation that we are bringing up. So we need that process as a country, where we are going to sit and reflect on how we can have a better country. So it should be a participatory approach where you, me, and the other person look at where we went wrong and how best we can reconcile. That's it from me.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting that you talk about that, because you look, we're in a society that no longer teaches about love, that no longer teaches about friendship. We no longer talk about the morals and the tolerance we've been discussing earlier. And that really is a breeding ground for the violence we see everywhere. But also when you talk about the isolation of communities, you realize kids, everyone is locked up in their own home, and even in their home, people are locked to their room, and even in the room, they are locked to their phone. So there is limited interaction among individuals, and that really creates less understanding of one another, which certainly will breed the conflict. Yes, I see you want to say something. Please say it.
Yes, going back to the homes, Philip, look at the kind of husbands we are. Look at the kind of wives we have. Oh, okay, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. Compare them with our mothers, your mom, I don't know. My mom is, I think, around 60 something. So look at how they brought us up. Look at how our girlfriends are struggling to be better mothers. They are struggling to be better mothers. Yet they are exposed, they are educated, but they are struggling. Yet we had a generation of mothers who were not exposed and maybe only went to, because my own mom went to school up to primary 7. So she raised the 7 of us single-handedly. She challenges us up to today. Logically, we can have a conversation and she's challenging me or my siblings. But now we have a generation where I grew up and my mom would tell me, if you ever raise a hand, your hand, and lay it on a girl and they come to me, she's a retired police officer. So she would tell me, it's me who will make sure you sleep in the cells. Look at the domestic violence we have in our generation. Just don't go far away. We are a generation that is educated, exposed, but we beat people like, oh God. We have created a situation whereby, Philip, we don't talk.
I mean, we just lost an Olympic star to domestic violence.
Thank you. Men are committing suicide. Do you know why? Because society has made it look like a man is not a vulnerable being. You cannot express your feelings because society will say you're a weak man. But Philip, you and me know we are just normal human beings like others. How we express our feelings may differ. Why don't we, take it in that way? So we have gone that far, even in the homes where we are. So, like I said, we need a lot of healing.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that. And it's really powerful. Council Aliija, you see, many of the conflicts, like I mentioned at the beginning, we have tens of wars in the world today. But even where there is no war, that you have places that are at the brink of a war outbreak tomorrow, the other day, next week. And most of the wars you look at are wars that really can be avoided. What strategies, what mechanisms can be employed to see that we prevent some of these wars from happening, but also those that have happened already? How can we really pull them back and see we regain peace in these communities? Yes, Council.
Thank you. Just before I suggest a few mitigation factors, when Salim was talking about currently how we have a lot of, domestic violence and what, I, for one, can attest that if you go to court today and you're looking at divorce cases, the cases are mainly being filed because of quality. That's domestic violence. That's the truth. So I would say, us as a generation, we have been raised by parents that have empowered the girl child so much. And unfortunately, it's quite absurd. They have empowered the girl child to be vocal and to stand out, but have not taught the boy child how to handle an empowered woman, which has caused a lot of collusion, which has caused a lot of havoc. Because you find,
how should we handle you?
Exactly. So you find that I, for one, because I'm a lawyer, so I'll feel entitled. I'm like, well, I have my right to do A, B, C, and D. And let's say if at all I'm married to a traditional man or a boy that has been raised in the traditional way, that knows a wife is supposed to come back and cook, she's not supposed to work, so I'm just helping her to let her work. A very traditional man who does not know how to handle an empowered, educated girl, then we're going to clash and beat ourselves at the end of the day. So I think as a society, we need to go back to the drawing board and teach the men, the boys, how to handle an empowered woman, or else we're in for doom, because the women have become so vocal that tying them down as our grandparents were is a little bit too hard to achieve currently. So we have to find ways on how to incorporate that too. That yes, we have empowered the women, which is good, but how does now the man deal with this empowered woman? I think once we solve that, then we'll try to mitigate some of these beatings and all these conditions within the family. Then you asked me about mitigation and prevention of all these unjust happenings and all. One, we as a society, we as a people, we need to get back to who we really were. Why am I saying so? That over time we have adopted certain customs that do not really speak to the society we live in. What am I trying to say? You find that because I have studied and maybe I am a lawyer, the way I will treat my other family members that have not studied as much is going to be very disrespectful. So because my other family, because as I say, charity starts at home. So because I'm mistreating these other people that are supposed to be my first go-to in case of trouble, then they will be the first people to bring trouble to me. What am I saying? we find that in families, there are a lot of struggles here and there. Why? Because certain people feel they are a little above than the rest. So of course, dispute is starting right from within our homes. Once upon a time, I was talking to someone and they were telling me how corruption has spread through Uganda to date. And it's very simple. You find that a child just do dishes, his dishes that he used to eat, the parent is giving them 1,000 shillings. Oh, please, Junior, wash your plate. I'm going to buy for you candy. And this is the same child that has used that same plate. So we don't expect that child to grow up and not be corrupt because they're used for everything I am going to do. I have a checkout.
But you see, Linda, and I agree with you, but here's the contradiction. You see, we live in a developed world, a world that is exposed. This young child early in the morning is on Nickelodeon or whichever, and looking at how these young kids are behaving in Europe. They have a smartphone, they can see on TikTok and Facebook and wherever what is happening out in the world. And indeed, we're in a world that is talking about a human being is supposed to be treated in a certain way. You have a right to say this or do this, the empowerment you're talking about. So how do you sustain the traditional way of living of I have to wash the utensils, I have to clean the home, when I know that actually my mother can just hire someone to do that for me?
Thank you for the question. So as I said, we as a people, we need to get back to where we were. We need to discover ourselves and not just tap onto something that's going to be short term. What am I trying to say? If you notice, most of us going to schools, I was in a traditional school for 6 years of my secondary. So in that school, you would find that you have different classes of people, right? You would have the ones that are really, really well off. When it's, let me say, time for visitation, you find it's like a whole retail shop that they have brought for this person. And then there were those that moderate, and then there are those that really didn't have. But because you're in one school, one fence, you find that all of you would try to create friendships and groups whereby you find every walk of life person is there. But at the end of the day, when you go back home, you know what's in your father's house or your mother's house, right? So it's the same thing. We have picked up certain habits, certain mannerisms that does not belong to our father's home, if I could put that in quotes. And at the end of the day, we are going to break. I don't know if you have seen parents that cry because their children, their sons, their daughters beat them. I've seen certain people, like someone comes and they're like, I don't know what to do for my child because my child has beaten me. Why? We have forgotten how to parent the African way. We are trying to parent the exotic Western way, yet we are not living in the West. That's the sad reality. So we are trying to adopt things that are meant for different culture and trying to incorporate them into our culture, whereby the two are not compatible. It may work on the surface for a short time, but in the long run, it's not sustainable. It cannot be sustainable because it's not us. It's not us.
So maybe explain that. So in the end, because again, we're talking about cultivating a culture of peace. So are we able to recultivate this culture, these norms, these values into our children, that we get a society that lives the way we lived maybe 50 years ago or 30 or 50 or 20? Is it possible?
Yes, we can. I believe we can develop our own. You see, the thing about culture and customs, it grows with the people. Let's see, once upon a time, people used to move just dressed in skin, animal skin. But today we have invented and developed from the animal skin to the cotton clothes me and you wear. So it's the same thing. It's just a matter of sitting down as let me say, you, Muliisa, will say, I want this and this and this to be incorporated in my children. Trust me, when you are doing that, you have started your own generation of a certain caliber. Because all of us, somehow, if you go back and check your family tree, it was one man, got one woman or three, and then somehow the lineage grew. So it goes back to us as current people choosing to do things a certain way. That choice you make is going to affect generations to come. So that's why I keep saying it goes back to us and what we want to see. I personally will say maybe, probably, I want my child not to go through this education system. I want them to be A, B, C, and D. I want them to know this about their culture. Actually, that even reminds me, you find that today, to be a cool child or a .com parent, we are not even teaching our children our local languages. So we are losing out just when it comes to the conversations we're having with them. Why? We want our children to be the best British-speaking children, while forgetting that they are in Africa, in the African territory, whereby we have certain things that identify us, including the first being our language. So because you're trying so much to be so Western, we are losing out on who we really. So it's the first
I
thing we have to do.
It's a point of pride. I normally see parents who say, "Oh, my kids cannot speak Luganda. My kids cannot speak Runyankore or Soga. They are modern kids," and it's a great point you raised there. Thank you so much. I see, Salim, you wanted to add something to that, but also I want you to speak to how we can address some of these conflicts in the world, in the preventive, but also in the stopping of the ones that are already happening. Yes, Salim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Yeah, so I think as a country, I want to speak for Uganda because this is where I belong. I think we need to get back to the drawing board and address a few things here and there. And if we are to address them, then I think we can have a better conversation. I want to relate to what Council has been talking about. And I think there is a lot about upbringing in relation to the current environment. For example, I am happy that Council did say that they have empowered the girl child, but they have not empowered the boy child on how to handle an empowered woman. But I think in the process of empowerment, we have lost track of what exactly is the right thing for us besides the empowerment. So, right, and actually had to even give examples that a mother has to first beg their child, they're going to buy them candy for them to just wash a plate they used themselves. Now, me growing up, sorry, I'll keep referring to my family. My siblings, my elder siblings are girls. I grew up in a family where me as a boy, I had to cook for the girls because they were my elders. So I was brought up in a sense that I respect my elders. I cannot, up to today, by the way, to be honest, I cannot talk back. If my elders are speaking, I keep quiet and listen to them or just look at them. But it doesn't mean that I cannot express myself. So I think the kind of empowerment we should be talking about is where, for example, if me and my sister there were a couple, we need to be a couple regardless of your education, regardless of how strong you are. We need to get that line. We need to raise our children in an environment where we are raising them to face the world, because at the end of the day, they will have to face the world. So for me, I think we need to go back to the basics of what family is in our context and
But
what
you
a
see,
child
Salim,
means.
what you say is very interesting. But I mean, look, you have Council Aliija here. She's maybe she had a case in the Constitutional Court and she just won that case. She's feeling that strength in herself. She was facing off with maybe the Chief Justice of this country, and she comes back home. You don't expect her to wear down all that strength and power just in a minute and say, oh, now I'm here, the advocate beat and whatever I've been doing is off. She can't. That's part of her.
No, she can't. Ego and pride are totally different from empowerment. Do you agree or you disagree? Because one thing I always tell myself is if I ever get married, it's my responsibility and it's part of me to make sure that my woman keeps winning. I should be part of her support system at all levels. Because as a man, I'm supposed to provide leadership in a home, regardless of how powerful, how big my woman is. I still have to offer leadership in my home. And it's see, leadership is not about you being a man of vulnerability. I'm supposed to share with her because I'm the leader of this home. I share with her when I'm vulnerable, and when she is at that level, I am supposed to tell her, girl, keep going. ABCD, this is for us, because when she wins, I'm winning. But then it doesn't mean that when I'm part of her support system, she's above me in the family setting. You get it? We are equal as human beings, but we are not going to change the narrative, to be honest, Philip, that I was taught that the father is the head of a family. In my curriculum, it was there. I grew up knowing that my father should be the head. So for me, I think a woman winning does not change the fact that she's my wife or my woman. No, but also it's about how often do we have these conversations to understand how she looks at things and how I look at things. Then we have to get to a point where she understands that, okay, the kind of man I have, his level of looking at things is at this level, mine is this, but we need to get a common ground, because at the end of the day, I am the father to your kids. You are the mother to my kids, regardless of the power you have. And for them, they look at us as their parents. They don't look at us as Philip, the chief judge, Ajay, no, they look at us as father and mother. And now that is the biggest component that society builds on. Parents. Society begins with the parents, then the children, then we cascade to leaders, so on, because family is the biggest component we ever have as a community.
Very powerful. Thank you so much for that, Salim. It's really powerful and something to reflect on as we grow to see a peaceful and developmental society that we can sustain for the future. Lynder, I know you listen to that, but we are in an age where we have a series of international organizations that participate in the day-to-day running of what happens in the world. And you talk about the United Nations, talk about global financial institutions, World Bank, IMF, the World Trade Organization, the African Union. Here we have the East African Community with the European Union. Very many of these institutions actively engage in the peace or the conflict that happens around the world. How can these organizations contribute to a peaceful living in our communities, but also globally?
Thank you so much. The challenge with these international recognized entities, it's not that they are not trying, no. They are actually trying, and we commend them. But the question is the implementation of those different programs. For example, you look at the United Nations. The United Nations has very many arms and all that. And we are looking at it implementing its programs within this country. Has it been successful? Not really. Has it tried? Yes. It goes back to our policies as a country, because it narrows down to what we have here. Yes, they may do whatever they want. They may try to accord us with a lot of things. But the question is, are those things in line with our policies when it comes to their implementation processes? Well, we look at the SDGs. They passed them recently, and our goal is not so far away when we're supposed to realize all these things. well, there are certain countries that are somewhere on those 17. But when you come back to us, when you zero it down to Uganda, what much have we seen them do? What much have they been able to do? Yes, I know they want to, because you find they're engaging Ugandans. There's a lot of different things. They're trying to put up workshops, webinars on how to implement the same. But can we implement it? Can we realize it? That question still remains standing. So I would say for these international organizations, the best way they can implement peace and all is, instead of trying to go directly through the main government or the executive and what, let them narrow it down to these small CBOs, because these are the people that are going to connect directly and directly to the communities. They're the ones that are going to be able to implement their programs to the person beneath, to the person that's supposed to benefit from them. For example, you're saying zero hunger. Government, yes, you come to government and they'll say, okay, we're going to work on it. But it's going to take a whole other process, a whole other system for those funds or for those, whatever they may bring to reach the people that are supposed to benefit from the same. So I would say and suggest that they try to work hand in hand with the local best, simple community-based organizations other than the big entities, the big umbrellas out there. I think that's the best way they can implement their policies within the country.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Salim, one of the threats to global peace today is terrorism, and we know how much danger or havoc it has created in the world, be it here in Uganda, when you talk about countries like Kenya, Somalia, even the United States. We normally talk about 9/11. That's the most prominent, but of course, there are hundreds of other events that have happened there recently. We saw attacks in Russia. We continue to talk about attacks, and even as we speak, there is a police notice that Ugandans should be vigilant, because we expect to have some terror attacks anytime soon. Some have been foiled, some are still in the processes. First of all, why would people be interested in becoming terrorists? Something that is ideally going to take their life. But two, how can we discourage some of these individuals from being participants in this very dangerous vice? Yes, Salim.
Thank you, Philip. Sorry, you asked me about terrorism and you brought back the memory in me. After an incident happening, I think in Uganda during the World Cup time when we had a blast.
2010.
Remember in Kabalaga, and then I don't remember there very well. So a few months later, I was in Soroti. So I went to the Soroti airstrip. I was with some colleagues. But now, at the security checkpoint, all my colleagues were, given a green light to access the venue. Meanwhile, because my ID had the name Salim, they held me back for around 10 to 15 minutes. And when I inquired why, saying, it's not a bad time, the Muslims are doing this, I was like, wow, really? So for me, I think there is a lot.
You were held back
for 15 minutes. Because I'm called Salim. So for me, I think the perception of how the world is looking at things. I have read stories about people of my religion who have engaged in terrorism acts, and it's so unfortunate. But you see, extremists will always find a reason to attach their beliefs to whatever satisfies their kind of reasoning. So for me, I think one of the things is people are fighting religious wars, but in a very, very, I don't know how to describe it, but I should say
wish there was, I don't know which one, because catastrophic sounds better according to the way I want to look at it, but very bad way. Because I have read those stories where people are saying we should kill these infidels, we should, like a lot of being carried out on in some places, but it's not talked about. So for me, it comes back to dialogue, sensitization, awareness. Because if we have been tipped off that there is a terror attack, what has this government done to make sure that at least looks like what could happen? You get it? I just read it, I think. I read it on Twitter, but now someone who does not have Twitter, what happens? How have we sensitized them? How have we reached them? Because I believe police has what they call community policing. I thought this is a time when they would use that as a tool of sensitization and engagement. But also, you see, people join movements for various reasons. Look at the population of this country. The biggest chunk is of people who are youth, but also the biggest chunk is so unemployed, not just unemployed, so unemployed. Now today, someone will come up, like, look at the scams that have been around town. Did you read about is it Capital Chicken? Do you know how many youth used to take their school, tuition fees there because they wanted to make more money? So because of unemployment, people can go for anything. People are that desperate. People are here fighting to survive. Kampala Yocha, that is what they will tell you. Like, surviving in Kampala should be included on your CV because it is that hard. It is a skill. You get my point? So now, if you get such a person and then someone comes and convinces a naive youth and tells them, you know what, if you join my movement, we will do this, and they, manipulate them to fit their narrative. Are you sure they won't join them? But also look at how government has chosen to behave. Recently, I don't know if this will be sensitive, but recently I followed the protests about the corruption in parliament. And I was interested in how is the police going to respond? For me, I'm like, there is a lot here. If people are asking to demonstrate peacefully, what is the role of police? Me and you saw what happened. But this is the same police. I'm sorry, I want to use this example. When, oh God, there is this inspirational man of Lugogo behind there. Oh, I forget his name. He recently celebrated, is it 10 years or something? That week when they were about to have their event, I was using that.
Also Grace of Fanero.
Thank you. I bumped in a group of over 30 young men and women preaching, telling us about, and police was watching. I loved that. But then in traffic, I asked the police officer, how come those people are uninterrupted, but someone who is just holding a placard, walking, is arrested, is disrupting, is doing what with people's businesses? Like, don't you think there are double standards here? So if you frustrate someone whose mind is not like maybe mine and yours, the following day, someone is going to take advantage of their naivety and trust havoc to this country. So we need to have that engagement whereby you have an ear for me, I have an ear for you. We talk about these things, but we need a lot of sensitization.
Thank you.
Otherwise, these extremist groups are going to take advantage of the loopholes that we don't pay attention to.
Wow. Thank you so much. Sensitization such that people are engaged and know what is right and what should not be done in society. Council Aliija, you see, one of the things that are determinant of our day-to-day lives today is the technology. And when you discuss technology today, you can be discussing the social medias, you can be discussing the gadgets we use on a day-to-day lives, be it the mobile phones. And yeah, you know, we have a very recent case where something related to mobile phones, something they call pagers, was used in an attack in Lebanon just 2 days ago. But you can also talk about the other side of the technology, leave alone the good devices, the cars, the computers you are using. We have nuclear weapons being manufactured day in, day out. You have guns, you have drones that are used in fighting. You have, how can this technology be leveraged to create peace in the world? Because in the end, the biggest monies in technology, like it or not, are going to the side that is actually intending to go for war, or what of course countries will call defense, but it is ideally preparing for war. How can we use this technology to guarantee peace in the world? Yes, Lynder.
Thank you very much about that. Well, for every new era, it comes with its own challenges, and how we deal with it as human beings is what matters most, right? So you find that with technology, yes, it has done us good, but at the same time, it's also doing us bad. Once upon a time, there is a story I was looking at whereby they were saying that literally every gadget that has a camera, that gadget, there is another party that actually has access to everything that's done using that camera. And because of gadgets, that's why you find they are able to find your location. Let me say if I wanted to know where Muliisa is, I just have to type in the name Muliisa on Google, and I can find you as long as your phone is on and your data is running and your location pin is on. Like, it's not that hard to find someone, really. So yes, technology is good, but in the long run, it's going to be a bit stringent and a bit not really safe to use. And already we're seeing certain people facing certain things because of technology. For example, we're seeing Photoshop, we are seeing different things. Currently, recently actually I was working on a certain case about, it's covered in cyber law, whereby this person is basically technology. Someone is signed and they have transferred funds and what. So all these issues, yes, technology may here and there try to keep peace, but I personally, from my own perspective, I feel like technology has to be checked way more than just us people. Why? We find that the root cause of some of these wars is because different countries are just testing how good their weapon is. If I have this missile, can it hit a city? If I have this nuclear weapon, how far, how big is the damage it can create? So in the long run, because there are people affected, the other side is always affected. So we end up contributing to the clashes, the instabilities that are going to keep arising. So I, for one, would suggest that yes, just as we have the United Nations, I feel like we need to get other policies that are going to safeguard countries against technology and its effects. Well, I don't know, I believe you guys also saw, and there's a certain post some time back about the US and how there is a robot that was going to start practicing the law and what. And most people were so offended. Most lawyers actually were so offended. They're like, well, here is a robot that's just been manufactured that's going to do something that has taken us 5 or so years to just be qualified to, get there. But here is something that's just going to be made from the factory straight to court and iron. Is it fair? No. Does that contribute to instability? Yes. Why? Because our livelihood is being threatened generally. So technology, yes, may be good, but as a people, as a world, we need to find a way of harmonizing technology use, its development vis-a-vis our livelihood, or else we are doomed.
Thank you so much. Salim, you see, this technology, she talks about the robots and how they are coming in. And we talk about the AI revolution, artificial intelligence. But also it is not lost on the world that Hiroshima happened. It is not lost on the world that today Elon Musk is doing everything in his power to go to the moon and create stations there and on Mars, and all these things are happening. It is not lost on us that we have a war in Ukraine and every kind of weapon is being used out there. It is not lost on us that in Gaza, every kind of weapon is being used there. Just in our neighborhood in Sudan, and rarely do we talk about some of these wars. Hundreds of thousands of children and women and men are dying out there. And technology is playing a part in this. But on the positive side, how can we use these technologies to guarantee peace in our communities, in our societies, but also amongst nations? Yes, Salim.
I think Lynder stated it very well. Technology needs to be checked and regulated because we are where we are because someone somewhere also messed up with technology. Some house or someone somewhere is trying to, like Lynder said, to see or to test if whatever they invented will make sense or not. And because of technology, we are facing climate change issues. I'm sure you know that. Because of technology, we have lost our values. I am sure, I'll say this, you and me know that just like Lynder said, they invented a robot to act as a lawyer. But so you know, there are robots who act as wives as well. So for me, I think for me, I want to even call it bandwagon. Bandwagon is really taking us at a speed we even don't understand. Because you hear that in country X, they have invented machine X, you also run to, you jump onto that. But then
because we call what?
Also excitement, I don't know, Philip, if you grew up in Kampala. I didn't grow up in Kampala. I just used to come and visit. But the time I would be on a taxi to Kampala, I would be the most excited person. So we used to call it rural approach to urban excitement. We have that syndrome. Like the way we approach things, it's out of excitement. I love the idea of AI. I want to be honest. It is helping us, do work faster. But I think we need to go slow. We need to go slow. We cannot move at the same pace with the US. We need to also get back to that point where my mother used to tell me when I'm going to school, you need to know that you are from a humble family. Your background is that humble. Please don't assume that because part of your classmates are from, those good backgrounds, you belong there. Please, as a country, we need to know where we are coming from and where we belong. We don't have the capability yet to handle certain things. So they just launched the iPhone
16.
Rather 16. Have you noticed how Ugandans are excited and, already But I mean, it's a good thing, it's a good trend, but are we there yet? It has certain features that we don't have in this country. You get my point? I think I made 36 in April of this year. But when my youthful days, owning a BlackBerry was something else. Till when my sister moved to Germany, she had to buy me one. But let me tell you, using it became hard to the extent that I could even fail to sour a contact. So for me, I think as a country, or as a people of this country, or as a generation, we need to guide, because you see, this generation of ours has come at a time when there is, that shift in how the world looks at things. We have the mandate because our eyes, our ears have been opened from when we were growing up to where we are now. We have a bigger role. Like me and Lynder should talk to our elders once in a while to give them honest opinions, because we are in position to look at things from like where we grew up from, also relating to where they grew up from. So we need to be in the middle there and say, you know what, this is not good for this country. I think as a country, we need X, Y, Z. So for me, I think we need more investment in our literacy levels in regards to technology. But as a country, I think the priorities of this government are not yet there.
Well, thank you so much. And you mentioned things so interesting. Rather than rushing to get into the iPhone 16s and so on, how about we focus on things that contribute to our good living? Technology in the agriculture sector. How do we produce better in the agriculture sector? How do we produce better at school? How do we teach our kids better? It's very interesting that you talk about that. Our colleagues, unfortunately, our time is very much fast spent. We have about 10 minutes to be out of here, but I want to pick your first. We shall get your. I will get your concluding remarks about this whole subject of peace, and I want to say, in your view, do you think peace is something that can guarantee development in the world? And it's a direct question, and it doesn't really take a lot of trends out there. Lynder, do you think peace is one of the fundamentals we need to be developed in Uganda and the world?
Yes, I do. Why do I say so? You see, without peace, there is nothing you can do. I personally, being a lawyer, without peace, I am unable to work. Why? Yes, of course, I know most of us have heard of the terminologies that, yes, lawyers, we like wrangles, we like problems and what, which is true, it's what feeds us. But at the end of the day, I cannot solve your problem if at all there is a gun at the back of my head. So for every aspect of life, for everything that Mother Nature has given us, there is need for peace, for it to grow, for it to bloom. So without peace, then there is nothing we're doing in this world, because one day we will all die. We will all be dead because we are fighting each other, we are poisoning ourselves, we are trying nuclear weapons, we are beating ourselves, we are fighting over land, we are fighting for children. So without peace, there is nothing we can do as individually, as a people, as a country, as a continent, as a world. That's why, if you look at, I'll use an example of Egypt, or even actually Libya, when Muammar Gaddafi passed, and when that even before his passing, immediately they got into war. The Libya we used to admire, the Libya we used to see that was paradise to most people to go to, automatically altered to something else. No one wanted to go to Libya during that time. You look at Iraq, you look at Ukraine and Russia, because of all these instabilities, they're no longer first come to our head when someone says, I want to go and visit. It's not the first thing. It's very rare to find someone saying, I want to go on vacation, and they're saying, I'm going to Ukraine. Why? Because of all these instabilities. So without peace, then we are bound to fail at developing or growth, because we always have backlog to deal with. We are always in a state of quagmire about, will you be breathing in the next 1 second or not? So to me, peace is very, very vital for any development to occur. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynder. Salim, how much important do you think peace is for the development of our country and indeed Africa and the world?
I beg your pardon, I missed that.
In your view, how do you think, how much important is peace to the development of our countries and indeed the world?
How much?
In other words, what is the role of peace in the development of the world?
Oh. So I think the role of peace is, I don't want to be specific that the role of peace is enabling this or that, but we should just say that peace is an enabler for any development to take place. It's an enabler. It's not something we should be talking about. It is something that we should embrace, fight for, protect, uphold with whatever you have at your disposal. So because I get time and read, so there is something that speaks to me by, I don't know if you know someone called Desmond Tutu.
Bishop South Africa.
He say that if you want to make peace, you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies. So for me, that alone speaks volumes to me, and that's it for me.
Wow, thank you so much, colleagues, for really being part of this conversation. Now, I want you, since we are celebrating, yes, we celebrated it on Saturday, but I want you to give final, as we get out of here in a minute, a message of peace to the country, to the continent, to the world. Just in your own words, what message do you have for the world about the International Peace Day? Yes, I'll begin with you, Lynder.
Thank you. As we celebrate peace today, or this week and this year, it's my humble plea to each and everyone watching, those who get a chance to listen in, to view, and whichever way this message can get to you, for us to see ourselves tomorrow, for us to see a better world tomorrow. Let each and every one of us try to maintain as much peace and give peace all that nourishes Mother Nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynder, Evans, Aliija. And to you, Salim, a message of peace. Salim, are you there?
Sorry. I had forgotten to unmute. I'm saying that I don't want to say much, but you'll forgive me. I love reading, and I believe in some people that whose quotes I always share speak a lot to me. I'll quote someone. I'll tell you that person after. So this person said that an eye for an eye ends up making the whole world blind. And that is Mahatma Gandhi. So that's my message.
Wow, thank you so much, Salim Kawanguzi, for that powerful message, but also for making time to join the conversation today. And I must say, we appreciate the views you've shared with us. And thank you so much, Aliija, Evans, Lynder, for joining us today and for the amazing views you carry for us today. And I must say, the world and indeed the people, whoever can create peace in their society, in their country, in their organization, has had something to pick from the views the both of you have shared on this conversation. And I must say, like they say, peace does not mean the absence of war, but the guarantee that war will not happen even tomorrow or in the near future. And I must say, let us all work for peace, because this then will give us a lot of things. Will give us health security, educational security, intellectual security, food security, social security, and these are the things that will guarantee sustainable development for our communities, but also the world at large. Thank you so much for joining us, and I must say special thanks to the people behind the machines that are putting all this together, and also special thanks to the team at the Center for Constitutional Governance for putting all this together. And from us, we say good evening, and may you have peace and freedom always.